Well, I think before we dive into the actual site, it's always, I think, critically important to understand, because we've talked about the platform so much now that perhaps we've lost a little bit of really what it's launching to. And I think that was part of the reason that we selected the word platform, is that this is really the launch to not only our public engagement, which we will talk about later in this meeting, but also for further study and analysis as we develop, a regional vision and our goals and objectives for our work plan that will fuel the different tools that we talk about in terms of our dashboard, in terms of the toolkit, policy, pilot projects. This, what we're going to show you today, really is just setting the foundation from that, and it's really what we're going to build on to go forward. And as Hunter said, it was a pretty exhaustive effort getting to this point, and we'll show you on the website itself. I think we had over 150 different organizations, not just people, organizations throughout Northeast Ohio working on this, from all areas of subject matter, from the environment to economic development to transportation to housing. And I think you'll see a lot of that in our work here today. This is something, as we talked about at the May meeting, is really a launching point and is an evolving tool. So there's changes that we can make tomorrow. We can add, we can subtract, we can build on it. The public can inform it. They can actually participate in building it, as you'll see in the asset list piece that we have here. But really, fundamentally, I think this sets the groundwork for us to move forward. And it was a necessary step to kind of understand the conditions and trends on the ground. And I know that there's a little bit of weariness in terms of talking about this and wanting to get on to the next step, but this was an important one to take. And also, I think, an important one to show the collaboration across the region to move forward into kind of solution development, because it was critical to kind of develop some of the relationships that we've developed in putting the platform together. And I think it goes without saying that those relationships will be critical as we move forward into the different parts of the planning process. So, Mike, there was going to be indoor fireworks, but then John Getchie moved me into this room out of the arena, so we decided to scrap the indoor fireworks. Oop. Yeah, just double click on it. And here we are at the Conditions and Trends platform. This, again, is the reason it's a platform and it's online was just because we want it to be a living and involving document. We are working on a short 2 to 4 page executive summary that will be published probably in the next week or two. But the impetus for this was that we didn't want it to be something that was outdated the next day. So we took particular attention and focus to developing an online presence that not only presents our work, but also is an interactive place where people can comment and help us build our work in the future. So what you're seeing here now is the home page of the platform. And like any other website homepage, it has some pull down and drop down menus to go through in different ways. And so what I thought we would do today is just kind of take a quick glance at some of the different features, and then we can look at the different themes in a little bit more detail as we go forward. Because I'm really, really excited about maybe having a meeting that goes from 1 to 3 today, and looking at Chairman Manuel there, Vice Chair Manuel. So on the home page itself, if you look at the gray arrow there to the left in the left-hand column, the overview is a letter to the region from NEOSCC that encapsulates what our initiative is about, what we see some of the challenges on the ground, what some of the findings are in terms of how we are viewing them, and how we're going to take a look at working together to develop new opportunities and solutions going forward. And then it's also a call to action, a call for the region, no matter if you're a resident, an elected official, an agency official, or anyone else in the region that's a stakeholder, that you can get involved in this. And Patty will be explaining later about our community engagement plan, but we'll also be going out and meeting with elected officials and other agency officials throughout the 12 counties. And so this kind of serves as our welcome and almost challenge to them to kind of get involved with us and develop solutions together. Could I maybe go back? There we go. So if you scroll down a little bit, at the executive committee meeting a couple weeks ago, it was pressed to us, and I think rightfully so, that we needed to kind of present an FAQ of what this document is. And so this intro on the homepage basically talks about what this is and what it isn't. It is a platform, but not a political platform. It is a place where all of our findings are based on data and have been analyzed for their truthfulness. And so there's no conclusions drawn. Basically what we've done is just present the findings as our work streams found them throughout the 12 counties on the different issues in different work stream areas. As you scroll towards the bottom, you will see that, again, you can access the NAOSC letter to the region. You can also take a look at our list of community assets. This is something that the Quality Connected Places workstream is working hard on to identify assets throughout the 12 counties. And what we've developed today is based on some preliminary work and some of their preliminary listings in terms of listing the assets throughout the 12 counties. I think there's over 250 of them that we listed now, along with hyperlinks to those assets. So as we develop plans, and we talked about it today on the tour, when we were going past the park and building off assets within the region, this will become a critical part of how we develop our plans going forward. This is also going to be an entree point for citizens engagement, which we will involve them in suggesting assets to add to the list. The asset list will also then get kind of organized a little bit better. This is one of the things that we really didn't get to in order to launch this today. Can I go back? Any questions thus far? Am I going too fast, too slow? Underneath that is, during the course of our research, Joe McDonald in particular put together a list of 144 different plans, regional plans that were developed, economic development plans, environmental plans, transportation plans throughout the 12 counties. And what we've developed here is a search engine that you could search throughout those plans to find different data or different data points that you're looking for. This is something that, as a tool-based part of the platform, will be developed further as we go along. So you'll not only be able to look at the plans, but also look at some of our findings and kind of have a combination website on some of them. But again, it's about documenting what's been done in the past so that we understand and can build off some of the successes in the past. And this is something, it's in a different form. We've had this on the website for the last couple months, and there's been a lot of visitors to that area to kind of just peruse the database of plans. So, Mike, if you want to go up a little bit, and we'll finish. On the left over here are all the different ways that you can navigate through the website, including some overall themes, which we'll get to in a second, and our different work stream areas. Our work stream areas, for those not familiar with our work, are economic development, the environment, housing and communities, connections or transportation, and quality connected places. So what you'll start to see here is that we have developed an organizational structure where you can look at our findings not only by the work streams, but also kind of rolled up into the themes and start to see the bigger picture and bigger narrative across the 12 counties. In the right-hand margin is a way for people to log in and create a login identity so that they can interact with the site and post comments and be part of the community as we build the site.
Jeff, I tried doing it yesterday and wasn't allowed to complete it. Is that to be ready today now?
Yeah, because it was in its build state yesterday, so we weren't allowing people to sign up yet. So, thanks for trying, though, Howard. Thanks. Also, in the right-hand margin, you'll see a Did You Kneel program. This is something that I've been talking about for a long time. It's going to be part of a campaign kind of informing the public about some of the choices that we've made in the past, as well as informing them about some of our successes. And so what we've done here in the launch today is listed like 10 different facts and figures around population decline, about the increase of land that we're using and land that we're developing, the lessening of the ratio of people per acre in the region. As we've grown out, we've gotten smaller in terms of our population. And then some other things in terms of single drives in automobiles. What else is at the bottom there? I can't read it from here, Mike.
Brownfield sites,
yeah.
10%.
And this is something that I think is going to be important to pull out from our findings some facts and figures that you can share, particularly with the public. I presented last week at YSU to a group of high school teachers, and it was a fantastic experience because it was the first time that we actually had the data and the maps together. so is able to kind of tell our story. And their jaws just dropped when you talked about housing and transportation costs, the amount of people in the region that has declined, where we've grown by 33%. And so it was very interesting for them to kind of see it in visual form. But this, again, will be another way to kind of communicate it in a shorter form. So why don't we do the atlas real quick before we go into the themes? Another tool, and this really came out of the mind of Mike Thomas here, is the Northeast Ohio Map Atlas. This is an atlas of all the different maps that we put together in order to deliver the project. So under News and Resources, you can go to this whole library of map. Oh, I hope I don't have anything up there strange. But again, you can go through the whole library of maps that we've created for this and take a look at different things around population, around health, around affordable housing, around housing and transportation, around the amount of green space in the region, around brownfields, and other economic development costs. This, again, will be something that we will build as a database. Right now, they're really just, I don't think they're all tagged yet for all the different identifiers to search on. But this is a great repository to start building our database and how we move forward. And, of course, an important part of what we're doing is not only the vision that we're creating for the region, but really enabling the region to have the tools to make better decisions. And I think this is a great first step in doing that.
Are those all 12 county based?
The majority of them, a couple of them are a little bit larger than 12 counties, but the majority of them are 12 county based.
There are a few that are just maps of Cuyahoga County.
Right. Oh, yeah. And there's a couple that we pinpointed into certain parts of the region, particularly around health issues, where we still need to see if those same kind of trends within Cuyahoga County are in effect in some of the other parts of the region. So, but the majority of them are based on 12 counties. So there even could be a little bit of layover that we work into later in this. But again, this is a tool that we will develop as we go. Questions before we go into the themes? So, as I said earlier, we have these 5 work streams that have been working extremely hard over the last 6 to 8 months in just taking a look at conditions on the ground. And each of them were comprised of 30 to 40 volunteers from different organizations throughout the 12 counties, really focused on their subject matter area and taking a look at that subject matter and saying, well, what is it connected to land use that some of the issues that we're seeing are? And how is it that the trends are affecting the region? And even begin to look at, what is it that we need to do in order to improve the region? So the findings here today are really a culmination of all that work. And Mike, if you want to go into maybe economic development first.
The work stream?
Yeah, why don't we do the work stream first? I'm talking in that direction. So each of the work stream areas carries probably 6 to 10 different findings that are subject matter related to them. In economic development, they range from things around incentives for project locations to not really understanding the total or complete cost of project development, as well as looking at land use and economic development and how that affects the process. So if you want to open one of the findings, maybe. So in this first one, that really, maybe Mike, why don't you talk about this since you can see it a little better.
Okay, well, the first one has to do with employment growth and strengths in driver industries, and you can see we've included a number of graphs explaining that finding, along with text that goes into detail on what is in each graphic. All the supporting documentation for each finding is found on a single page that's related to that finding. So you can see there's a lot of information here, and that's true on virtually all of these.
Do you want to walk them through maybe the magnification of the graphics?
Oh, sure. Just click on it. Up it comes.
And then you can also take a look at all of the graphics going forward, just doing a forward, so it's almost like a mini PowerPoint that you can present. Anthony?
Can you download it from that site, or do you have to go to the map location, or is that not possible?
I think you could probably download a very low-res JPEG off of it, but I don't think you could download the actual image yet.
Not yet, but we'll
It's
be there
coming.
quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of things, and as you guys know from the last board meeting, this has been a work in progress, and this was a good place to kind of pull the curtain back and start using it, but there's a lot of features that we'll be adding in the next couple of weeks to enrich that experience. So.
We can add a download button. Right now, people can just right-click and save the image, and if they want to do that.
Where did this information all come from?
The economic development information, I think a lot of it came from some of the Team NEO work and some of the Jobs Ohio work. I'm not certain the individual citations each of them are cited in terms of their source document.
This was work prepared, I believe this is the work prepared under the direction of Ned Hill at the request of Jobs Ohio as part of the effort to do a Northeast Ohio economic development strategy. So we were benefited, quite frankly, by serendipitous synchronicity here between our work and theirs. And as they release more of theirs, I think they're going back through some of this. I believe we'll be adding additional data points.
Like on this one, that it's the OSU Center for, it's hard for me to read. CSU. Pardon.
The CSU?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and primarily we didn't really perform any primary research to get this done. I think most of the research was done already. We did invest in a little bit of research and data from the Center for Neighborhood Technologies, but otherwise it really came from common sources here throughout the region. So each of the work streams are kind of set up like this into findings and then drilling down deeper into the findings. You can also view all this information by the themes, and maybe might go back to the home page and we can look at the description of the themes. Sure. Any questions as we're bumping through? So the themes. This was something that as we brought our strategy on board and as we were taking a look at the online report function of this, we were kind of blown away by the amount of data and the amount of different maps and different kind of findings across all of the work streams. And so we started taking a look at that and tried to examine, well, what are some of the themes that are coming out of that? And what is some of the themes that are relative to our work that will really help us kind of focus and bring some of these different work streams together? Because as a sustainability consortium, it's important not just to look at these things in the silos of economic development or the environment, but really kind of try to bring them together and see, well, what is sprawl and how is kind of the extending of our building affecting health, affecting housing, affecting transportation, and affecting economic development, and how best can we kind of bring that together. So really these themes today that we've come up with are both themes and findings of things that we need to work on and things that we need to celebrate. The first one, assets and resources, is a mixture of things that we could take pride in terms of assets of the region, as we showed you the asset map, but also some of the resources that are being challenged as we go forward in terms of some of our groundwater and lakes, rivers, and streams. The asset and resources also includes one of the first products that the consortium put together, which was the regional land use map. If you want to click on that. I think it should be the very first one. And this was a product that, again, came together through a very unique and for the first time collaboration across the 12 counties to really develop a regional land use map. And as Hunter mentioned, and Anthony is really working on with a lot of the MPO staff and Bob Now and his staff, we're really focused. The next deliverable will be a 12-county zoning map, which, again, kind of parallels this one in a lot of ways. And then it'll be up to us to kind of figure out how can we best make these into products that can be usable at the ground level. So maybe go back to the themes, and we'll just bump through the rest of the themes. Some of the other themes include population decline and how the region has responded to population decline relative to land use, and how that is taking a look in some of the early graphics that we had, looking at density across the 12 counties and how it is spread out, and some of the ramifications of that, as well as different things related to population and employment within the 12 counties. Anthony?
Mike, if you go back to that one screen, so I noticed the color coding on the bars stick with the work streams.
Yeah, I didn't mention that. Yeah, the color coding on the bars does indicate which work stream it came from, so you could always track which work stream you're in. Again, changes in population across the 12 counties, trends over the last years.
Jeff, is there going to be a search function as part of this?
We're almost there.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're almost there in the presentation. There is a search function. Thanks, Stuart.
I can find that segue.
Thanks. The other theme in terms of spreading out, this again is related to the population decline, but really takes a look at how spreading out in the region has driven up costs relative to transportation, and it made it so that it's very difficult to get to job centers and to other places throughout the region without a car. So this one is heavy on a lot of the connections workstream findings, but as well as some of the findings related to the environment and how the abandoning brownfields and industrial sites has really become an issue within our region. Yeah, this one is on household costs and housing and transportation costs. I don't know if this one is linked to Blow Up correctly. This would be an interesting one to look at. No, I think it's too big. So, the housing and transportation index that we used for this is part of the Center for Neighborhood Technologies methodology, and it takes a look at your housing costs and your transportation costs as a percentage of your median income. And what they have found is that to be affordable, it would be 45% or less of your median income in terms of H+T costs. This map indicates the areas that are 45% or lower in the dark gray. All of the rest of the region in terms of this, I guess it would be a salmon color, is 45% or higher. The wonderful thing about purchasing the data from CNT is that we can now drill down to different neighborhoods. We can drill down to different metro areas through the 12 counties. We could look at housing costs only. We can look at transportation costs. And I think, Kelly and Anthony, didn't we get 2000 and 2010? Didn't we get them both? Yeah. I think we can also do a comparison. I think this is 2010. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you have the data behind the maps. Is there any thought about trying to make this particular website more interactive? I mean, it looks fantastic, and you put a lot of information together in a way that is very clear and understandable, and I have some website envy now. But, you know, that kind of zoom in, interact, there's a lot more behind each of these maps.
Yeah, and right now, because we wanted to get these findings up, because the findings not only serve for the interactivity on the website, but also to fuel dialogue, we felt it was important to get them forward in terms of kind of a flat image. But there is a lot of data behind all of this that we need to start culling through and putting together, because what I am excited about is that people will be able to come to these sites and drill down to, you know, how they are affected within where they live, not only housing and transportation, but we can add in some health things and different things that NeoRio does, as well as different agencies throughout the 12 counties. So bear with us on that front, though.
Jeff, just to go back a little bit, you talked about zoning, county zoning. Please don't tell me that 11 counties have one county zoning map for all their areas.
No, here, let me explain what we've been doing. Every community has its own zoning code and its own zoning map, and trying to generalize from that is a challenge. But working with an approach that AMAT's developed and looking at generalized land use and generalized zoning across the 4 MPOs in Cuyahoga County, we developed a set of protocols for how to look at that, so that we can look particularly at housing density, because housing density relates very closely to transportation. You have to have a certain level of density to support transportation. So we'll be able to look at the densities of housing and then general types of uses, industrial, commercial, residential, agricultural, and the like. That will also allow us to do some matchups to see in general terms how over or under zoned we are. We've been able to find, for instance, that a relatively small percentage of the region's land area is industrial, but we suspect a good deal more is zoned that way. And when we looked at several years ago at Medina County and found that their zoning would accommodate a population 2 or 3 times the actual population, which was a piece of information local communities use to rethink where they want to be. And many of our communities haven't had the opportunity to look at their zoning for many years. Other grantees that are further down the line, such as Chicago's MPO, are actually taking information like that and working on essentially a contract basis with municipalities that want to take advantage of the opportunity to update their zoning. So this is really a first cut at a common understanding of what's in the cookbook about where we're headed.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's already proved some fruit of its labor, right? Someone's already using some of the data or the zoning pieces of it. Or should I not have said that? All right, I won't say that. Someone's borrowing something. I'm getting ahead of the story. So the last 2 themes really focus on an evolving understanding. This first one was really as the work streams came together and looked at the data that was available, that there was a lot of data that is still missing and data that still doesn't tell the whole story. So this one really focuses on some of those areas that we really need to dig deeper and to find and develop a better understanding of some of these conditions on the ground. I know the one around economic development and actual project costs is something that really is a hot button and something that we really want to consider on how we can start to measure that going forward. So that's in there in terms of the environment. I think the brownfields are in there, just the lack of identification of where the brownfields are throughout the region, and then there's a few others. And then the last thing is continuing challenges. And this is a theme that we found where, that we have done some work on, but we have continuing challenges in the region to meet as these solutions are developed or as problems still arise. And some of these challenges have been things that our region has been fighting against for a long time and trying to solve. And so they contain a multitude of things from the different work streams as kind of continuing challenges that need to be met in the future. With that, I guess I'm going to answer Stuart's question now. So in the box on the upper right is a searchable tool. So you can plug in, if you put in the word population up there, and then search through the posts. It'll give you all of the population-related subject matter on the whole Trends platform. This is still something that is kind of in development because right now it's searching the entire website, so you might get pieces of content in there too. But it is an interesting way to look at it. You can do it for keywords such as cost, brownfields, health, and really start to hone in on different subject matters that might be more important or more critical to you. Other questions, comments? Jason?
Well, Jeff, I think first I'd like to really commend you and the team from our strategy and the team from 427 Design that pulled all this together. I think it's really impressive, especially considering when you talked about this at the last board meeting, the amount of data and information that's been pulled together in a relatively short time. And I know you guys have been working really, really hard on this. It looks great. So I wanted to commend you for that. And one of the things that I find very exciting about this is you talked a little bit about some of the foundation work we've done, and you mentioned the 4 kind of main work products that we hit on, which were a toolkit of best practices, a dashboard to kind of let us know where we are as a region, pilot projects that might be able to flesh some of these themes out, and then policy recommendations. And I think just so everybody on the board kind of knows where this is going, and the first part of my question was maybe to ask you to speak to that a little bit more, but what this really enables us to do, I think, is to have a pretty good database to start to figure out, for example, when we put a dashboard together, we have some great indicators here already. When we might want to investigate different kinds of pilot projects we could be involved with, some of these findings I think would help us to identify those. So the first part of the question, I guess, was if you were able to just speak to maybe where some of this is going vis-a-vis those products. The second part was some of us were talking today when we went out in the community and talking about how there's no substitute for seeing things with your own eyes, and how I think another powerful thing about this platform is it pulls together some data that people can start to get an understanding of, and then might lead to opportunities for people to go out and investigate things for themselves, or lead to the other types of engagement that I think you're going to talk about later in the agenda. But I wondered if maybe, if you still remember the first part of my question. I have a knack for this kind of thing. The second part was maybe to just talk a little bit about how this is used as an engagement tool, because I noticed you have the join the conversation button, and I think a lot of good opportunities, and I'll shut up.
I appreciate the thanks, and so on behalf of 427 and our strategy, you're welcome. But a lot of this was really just based on the hard work of the project managers and the work streams, really, and that's, to me, and it was great to see all these organizations come together, and I think Mike Thomas will be happy that he and I aren't exchanging emails on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. anymore, but perhaps that will happen going forward. But I think this is the subject matter that we're going to be talking about. This is what we need to engage the region in, not only within our board and our executive committee and our work streams, but the greater region around these facts and how they relate to our work. And I think all of that will infuse the dashboard. I mean, there are some things that are easy to pick on indicators, but there's also things here that are going to spur conversation with the public that might change our mind about some of those indicators and kind of reposition them in a different way. And this is kind of the coming together of all the supporting information and the finding information so that you can move forward and develop different plans and different strategies. It's kind of the education that we needed to do on the region, because it really hadn't been done in this fashion or comprehensively like this before. I will also say that there are other findings that the work streams have worked on that will be added to this, so this is not a limited universe of findings. This is a learning process and will evolve. I think what we try to focus on is what are the 5 to 6 most impactful, but as we did that, it got to be 7 or 8 and growing and growing. The challenge for us is to take all of this and to manage it into a process that we're developing a really comprehensive solution at the end. And I think this is going to set up some expectation as to what it is that we're analyzing in the next 18 months, but I think we need to take that challenge on and say these are the areas we're going to analyze, and this is what will be part of the deliverables at the end. So I think it will influence the type of tools that we developed. I mean, a great tool, as Emily said, would be just the interactivity of some of these maps. Another great tool with the zoning and land use map would be, how is it we could put it on a site where people can just download quickly and make decisions and relate it to some of this other work. And so there's a lot of different tools out there that we have to focus on, and a lot of tools that are part of the HUD deliverable anyways that we need to do. And I think this helps us get that started. To your second question, I think today was, I wish we had videotaped the entire morning, because it would be something that I think the whole board should have watched, because it was really great to see people interacting around some of these issues here in the neighborhoods, particularly in Youngstown. And really, it's that kind of learning that we need to spread. So as part of this platform in the future, particularly the general public, will be able to post photos and tell stories about how these issues relate to them. Because right now, if you're somebody, like if I gave this to my brother, he would say, well, it's a bunch of maps. What does it exactly mean to me? And so we need to work on that and also let them define it for us. So I think that'll be a significant part of what Patty's going to talk about. But all told, this will be something that's just building blocks that builds the dashboard and builds the kind of better region understanding. I think I got them both. Howard?
Your brother may be right. It is just a bunch of maps. But it's never been done before.
No, and I believe me, I don't discount the effort that we got to get here. I don't discount it at all.
I've seen many of the trends and conditions report. This is really terrific.
Thanks.
And, it's probably the best that I've ever seen. From the map atlas to the collection of existing plans, this is top-notch effort.
Yeah, and what I'm saying, Howard, is that we just need to challenge ourselves not to just rest on this, but make sure that it's relatable to all the different audiences. Because it's really, and Patty will talk about this, it's really the residents and the elected officials coming together around this that's really going to be able to create change. And so we need to make certain that they understand these things in their terms and they can do something about it. Dan?
Yeah, I'd like to, first of all, congratulate the work streams and managers and consultants who put this together, and especially you for your efforts. But one of the things I wanted to kind of stress was that the platform is the beginning of a regional conversation. It's not the end. It's not the end all be all. It's to generate discussion, sometimes even possibly contentious, but discussion based on fact, not on wishful thinking. So I think that's important in that it's dynamic, that it's not static. It's going to change. New things are going to be identified, and that the information is useful to local officials. The problem with local officials is they don't understand. They don't have people. They need to be able to zero in on data. They need to know to make decisions for all kinds of reasons, whether it be grant applications or planning or whatever. So I like the dynamic part of it.
Well, and I do think we talk about products a lot and tools, and I do think what we need to do in the future is really take a product development mentality and say, well, what is it the final user within the government organization is going to really need this for, and how we can best shape the development of that to achieve that. So it's not just that we are kind of comfortable in the typical tools or the traditional tools, but how we can kind of move that conversation forward. So, George.
As we move forward into the engagement process, if we're successful, I can imagine that the level and volume of traffic on the website and comments, suggestions, if not properly managed, can swamp the thing. I just wondered how much conversation has been going on about capacity strategy to deal with this as a truly interactive tool and engage people in a meaningful way, not just sort of like a surface way.
Right, and I do think that, and we've talked about it with, and Patty will touch on it a little bit in the engagement process. We've talked about it with our strategy and internally. I think it's almost a full-time person that's going to be curating this, along doing some of our other social media and other kind of community outreach. Maybe full-time just curating this will come in waves, as we introduce new things. But as this gets out to the public, I think there will be quite a bit of interest. And back to Dan's point is that we can't be afraid of argument. I mean, there's going to be people that really, really disagree with what we're doing and really, really disagree with some of our findings, even if they agree with the overall purpose. And we need to find a way through online engagement and in-person engagement that embraces that dialogue. I don't want to spend all of our time online because I think most of the changes are going to happen in person. And so we need to use our resources wise to manage this, but make sure we're doing parallel efforts on the ground, particularly in communities that don't have access to tools like this. So, Jason.
You kind of touched on this, but could you talk maybe just a little bit more too about the strategy going forward on disseminating the information, letting people know about the site, maybe how that would interact to even having in-person meetings to engage? I know, for example, the Plain Dealer is interested in covering this now that it's released. I promise to tweet it to my 90 followers on Twitter. But like, I think there are probably other ways that you've thought about, because you're very good at that, of engaging people, and if you could share a little bit about that.
Well, I don't want to steal from Patty's thunder, because she's going to talk about this and how
Okay,
it fits
so
into
that'll
the
be
public
the next
engagement plan. But I can say through the work, kind of the integrated work of our strategy and Patty, there's going to be, actually starting today at 3:30 or 4, quite a bit of push out on this. In our social media channels, there's a lot of media here. So there'll be a lot of noise, if you will, made about this in the next week. And we do have a strategy to keep this moving forward and to bring out, as I said, some of the salient points of it. And we're meeting on Thursday with Patty's team and Jeff's team to really focus on, so we have the findings, and now how can we get them into more of a digestible format so when we go out to have public engagement that works. So, but yeah, I think at an executive committee meeting about a month or two ago, I said, I'm just waiting to let the dogs loose, and tonight the dogs are being set loose. So it's going viral, you might say. So, other questions? No? All right, well, thank you, and really, the platform will only be as good as you guys visit it and make suggestions for it, so we want you to do that. You'll also be receiving probably sometime late tonight or early tomorrow kind of a templated email that you can share with your staff linking to this as well as your boards, so that we kind of have some consistent messaging going out to all the different board members of our board organizations. As well as a pretty nice thank you going out to all the workstream members tomorrow morning for helping to build it. So with that, I will conclude my discussion. Thanks.